So what you're about to hear is going to be a four-part series. I realized as I was going through the material that I wanted to make sure that I gave you enough time to digest each one of these decisions that you have to make after a conference. Right, the majority of you are listening to this, going to be listening to this series after NRF, and but more importantly, as a preparation for any conferences that are going to be coming up this year. I want you to make sure that you listen to this. You give this four-part series to your team so that they can listen to this because collectively, everybody needs to be on the same page. And what I am about to present to you is going to help you make a difference in your year if you listen, if you actually implement the things that we're going to talk about on how to make and how to think about four decisions that you need to make after any conference that you go to this year. All right.
Welcome to Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy, where we go well beyond the corporate playbook to unpack major opportunities, hidden challenges, and critical issues that senior retail leaders face every day. So let's get started right now.
Welcome to another episode of Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy. And as you can tell by the title, we are going to be talking about at the NRF and also, conferences, right? We are kicking off the new year, 2026, and NRF is always one of the biggest, if not the biggest conference of the year to start the conference season. There are going to be a whole bunch more. And I wanted to have this conversation. It's almost a spinoff from a podcast episode that I did with Jamie Hancock, who is the founder of Commerce Futures. Please go ahead and take a listen to that episode. It's a really great conversation about conferences and how to get the most out of them while you're there and probably even prior to. And so the conversation that I wanted to have today is around four decisions that retail leaders and founders need to make. And the reason why I put in founders into this is because if you can see, if you're looking at this on the video, you'll see I'm wearing a hoodie that says Decode. And what we have in the campus is a Decode Accelerator. And this is for founders and startups, those who service the retail industry, and that they are on the peripheral of the retail industry. They provide products, services, and ideas for the actual industry, and we do an accelerator to help them craft their ideas, their messaging, go-to-market strategies, and things like that. And one of the things that we tend to do is help these startups with different ideas as they go to conferences. So this is two-part. This is really for retail execs after the conference, and this is also for those founders and startups who are thinking about what do they need to do after the conference. There are four decisions that I need you to truly understand and get. We're going to run through these because I don't have a lot of information. I want to keep this as neat and as tidy as possible. So if you are thinking about a conference, I love conferences. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of energy. And can I tell you what tends to happen is that everything becomes possible when you're at a conference, right? When you hear people speak on stage, rightfully so, right? These individuals have earned the right to be on these stages. And they are having robust conversations about store of the future, AI implementation, supply chain, innovation, all these different things. One of the things that they don't talk about enough is leadership, but that's a whole nother story. Right? They've earned the right to be there. They've earned the right to, allow you to listen to them. And what tends to happen is that everything is possible. Conferences, almost like if you've ever been to is it CES, right? Out in Las Vegas. I think that's actually taking place right now as I record this. You go to a conference like that, and they will have products and automobiles of the future, concepts, right? And more often than not, a lot of these concepts never come to market. They just don't. It is a really great opportunity for you to stretch the imagination of your company and of the audience that's actually going to be attending these conferences. NRF, all the other conferences are the same, and I'm not knocking that at all. That's the purpose, right? The purpose and sort of underpinning of these conferences is to stretch your imagination, stretch your thought process, challenge your assumptions, think differently, collaborate, right? Get new ideas, all those great things. But then what happens afterwards? What happens afterwards? There's 4 decisions that you have to make. 4 decisions that when you hear this, it's going to probably be after NRF, but I think the timing is gonna be perfect because you are gonna still be in that, the hype phase, right? It's the aftershock of the conference where there's just a lot of energy that's still associated with the conference. People are posting, people are, sharing lessons learned, all those great things that you should be doing. So let's get into, these 4 decisions that you need to make. And the first one is definitely the most for me, the most important. There's a lot each one is great, but, I spend a lot of time talking to founders, and even leaders about this first one. It is decide the real problem you're solving this year. Decide the real problem that you are solving this year. See, NRF and conferences in and of themselves, they do a really good job of pushing solutions. But as a leader, as a founder, you have to, and it is the most important thing to do is to define the problem. I always put it in this context. The number one job of a leader is to define reality for themselves first and then for their team. It holds true directly after NRF or maybe even while you're going through a conference. Maybe this is something that you need to listen to before you attend your next conference. And the area that is that we don't talk about enough is the problem hierarchy and also the problem stack, right? We talk a lot about data stacks. We talk a lot about data integration, data implementation, AI interfaces, all these different things, but we don't talk about the problem hierarchy and the problem stack. So I want to talk about those two real quickly as it relates to what you need to do to define the problem. So here's the issue that I have when when companies and individuals are struggling or they don't know where to start. Each problem, each problem that a company has a set of mini problems inside of it. And for each mini problem, each on those mini problems, they have a very specific solution. And then here's the thing that you need to understand. Please get this. For each mini problem, there is a person or a department associated with it. I know rudimentally you get that. I understand it, right? You're probably like, yeah, I kind of get that. But do you? But do you really understand? Because if you understood that, you will understand there's an emotional tie to that mini problem as it relates to the bigger problem. Please understand that because there is an individual, their job is on the line, their department is on the line. There could be a massive problem with logistics, but from an assortment and procurement standpoint, there are multiple people who have issues or may have a mini problem that needs to be solved. And if those problems are not solved, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. We get so enamored by the big problem that we forget that there are multiple problems, multiple layers right? And so if you are think about this, if you're a founder, you have a product and or a service or whatever a solution, and you are talking to retailers and you are so excited about the problem that you want to solve for them, and it's not landing. It's not making sense to them. They're like, I get it, but I kind of don't. And here's the problem without me going through a whole list of or creating a whole nother podcast inside of this podcast is because you are probably solving problem number 3 in the hierarchy, but problem number 1 and 2 haven't has not been addressed, right? And the only way that you will get to understand that is by asking the right questions and then being very laser focused on the problem that you want to solve. Because if you're laser focused or if you start to drift in the scope of the problem that you solve and you start to become all things to all people, that's where you get lost. That's where companies turn off. They turn internal to a team or somebody else to solve their problem, and your problem, and excuse me, and your solution doesn't land appropriately. It just doesn't. So understand that each problem has many problems, right? And I say many, I mean MINI, many problems inside of it. And for each one of those, there's an individual and a department that's layered to this. So let's talk about the problem stack. Let's talk about the problem stack. And I'm going to run through these because there are 6 of them that you need to think about as you think about your company, if you're the exec, but also if you are the founder or or startup, and you're thinking about your company and what problem you want to solve. There is the presentation problem. Let's talk about this. What feels urgent after the conference? There is the presenting problem. This is the problem that sort of um, on its face, it stands out as obvious. It's obvious. Okay, this based on everything that I went to hear at the conference, this is the problem maybe that the industry is facing, and this is the problem that we may be facing as a company. Or this is the problem that my users are facing, and this is how we need to address it. There is number 2, there is a structural problem. How the organization is actually set up to respond. This is the core issue that I see within a lot of companies, and that where problems can never become truly solved because the structure of the company isn't set up properly to address it. Because once again, there are many little problems inside of the structural problem. And if you are not addressing those many problems and the individuals associated with it, you will never get to the core issue. Everything will feel like it's solved for a minute, and then it'll go back to the norm because your culture is set up that way. Your culture is set up. I'm going to get to the cultural problem here in a second, but your culture is set up that way where it fights against itself in order to maintain its relevance, and those are the individuals. So you have to understand that. How is your organization set up to respond to a problem? Is it structurally sound? Once again, each one of these is a podcast episode in and of itself, and I probably will end up doing that too. Number 3, the relational. This is all still under number 1. Decide the real problem. So I want you to understand that. And these are just the problem stack that we're going through. The relational problem. How leaders and teams interact under pressure. Oh boy. How does your team deal with pressure? What I see more often than not is there is a presenter and a company that is on stage at a conference, and they're presenting an idea, and that idea hits at the heart of a issue that your company is facing. And once again, it is hitting at the heart of the individual who was probably responsible for solving that problem. And they begin to feel the pressure. They feel the pressure because that speaker is speaking directly at them to the heart of the core of who they are and the core of their problem. And so they feel the pressure. What they immediately start to do, they start to blast off text messages to their team, WhatsApps, emails. This is what I'm hearing from the conference. We need to get on top of this. We need to do this. Da, 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 all these different things. And then the team that is not there, and we'll be talking about this here in a second, the team that is not at the conference, they're getting the brunt of all this unfiltered information and ideas, and they have no context, zero context. Zero context. And the pressure mounts. And so when you get back from the conference, you go in and you say, hey, did you get all the information that I sent you? And they're like, yeah, what the hell do you want me to do with this? So that is the relational problem that you have within your company. The decision problem, number 4, the decision problem, how choices really get made or avoided. Oh my gosh! As I'm going through this, I'm like, man, these are definitely podcast episodes because I got so much more I want to say with this, but I want to get through the rest of these questions, rest of these decisions that you need to make. The decision problem, how choices really get made. Do you know how decisions are made? Who is the last line of sign off for a decision in your company? Are they at the conference? Do they see the problem the same way that you see the problem? Do they have the resources necessary? Do they have the buy-in of the board? All these different things. We think about coming up with solutions to a problem where one, we don't have the authority in order to solve it, nor do we know how the actual decisions are truly made within our organization. And this is what stalls innovation. This is what stalls uh, the implementation of really sound ideas because the decision matrix is so convoluted, and we have no idea how things are actually being decided within our own organization. Number 5, the capacity problem. What the organization can realistically absorb. What we tend to see, and we see this a lot with AI, we see organizations who have um, been to an AI conference and they understand its merits and they want to implement something, but um, fundamentally, their company cannot absorb the actual influx of data, of information, of truly understanding what their problem is, because there are too many gatekeepers. They're um, they're fundamentally flawed in how they make decisions. They have a culture that isn't really truly set up to win. They don't have a capacity. Their team is outdated in maybe their leadership quotient, and their ability to understand and problem solve. They may be low on emotional intelligence. The team has lacked self-awareness. The decision mindset isn't there. Listen, I can go on about capacity problems within organization, but you are the one that actually needs to understand where this problem is, where this problem stacks up within your organization. And the last one, which is probably one of the most important ones from a problem stack standpoint, is the cultural problem. What the organization truly rewards or avoids. Man, oh man. What does your organization truly reward? It's a really good question to ask yourself. There's a sense of frustration that I have when I think about this one. Uh, I'm not going to get into it because I see it so often. I see so many companies and organizations and leaders say they value X, but they reward Y. And so many companies, so many leaders are losing and lose credibility, and they just continue to lose it. And it's just it's frustrating. And so yeah, whew, I'm going to leave that one alone for a little bit. Here's the question I need you to answer. And this is once again for problem number 1. If we execute one thing exceptionally well this year, what problem must it solve?